time to get to an interview. I know a lot of our regulars love when we get in some of our experts from across the sports world to give us a little bit more analysis. And fortunately, folks, college football is just around the corner. I am so excited to be able to say that college football, the clock to kickoff, is slowly dwindling down to zero. And fortunately, that also means that our college football analyst, Tommy Morris, is joining us. You can check him out on Twitter at Real Tommy Morris. Tommy, great to have you on the show. Hope you're up. Just lost him because I'm screwing up the call. There we go. Real Tommy Morris, great to have you. Tommy, how you doing today?
Good. Very, very excited for 2 weeks from now when we can get this whole college football thing going.
So Tommy and I spoke before the show, and originally I was like, Tommy, I'd love to talk to you about realignment, but I have to admit, I'm exhausted from the realignment talk. I have realignment fatigue. And so instead of going where we originally talked about, I'm actually going to pull a complete audible on you and just throw you right in the middle of the 50-yard line with everyone chasing you, which is instead of...
You realigned on your views on realignment?
That's exactly right. I realigned on my realignment take and my desire to talk about realignment. But that said, that was very good by you. But that said, I actually wanted to start in a more positive place. I love college football. I love the opening weekend. I love the rivalry games. I love the mascots. I love the traditions. What are like three of your favorite college football traditions, rivalries? What are the things that get the goosebumps, chill bumps up on your arm as we get ready for college football?
Yeah, well, I obviously very biased as a USC grad. The USC-UCLA rivalry used to be good, but I'm not even going to put that in the top three because it's been so one-sided in the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, actually basically forever. But I always loved, and again, I hate it because the SEC, it feels like has a monopoly on college sports and college football in general, but some of those games are pretty hard to beat. It's pretty hard to beat a Florida-Georgia game. It's pretty hard to beat Alabama-Auburn. So I would say all top three end up being SEC things, but there also are some fun cross-conference rivalries, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. The battle of the Carolinas, we're going to talk about, I think, during this segment. And then I also really like whenever Miami plays either Florida or Florida State. I like those Florida rivalries.
Now, because I'm such a college football guy in this way. First, my favorite thing is the Iowa Wave. If you don't like the Iowa Wave, you don't have a soul, you don't have a heart. So the Iowa Wave at the end of the first quarter when they wave up to the kids at the hospital, like, yeah, if you don't love that, like, you're just a terrible person. Second, I think my favorite thing in college football, as crazy is some of the entries. Like, I can't get enough of Virginia Tech and Enter Sandman.
I was going to say that's the first thing I thought was Virginia Tech when you started to mention that.
I also have to admit, jump around at Wisconsin, special. Like, that's just special. I have been there for that, and you just feel like the stadium's going to come crashing down. And what I love about college football is these things have nothing to do with the game on the field. I love the walks. I love the walks at Ole Miss. I love the walks at Texas A&M. I love the walks at Alabama. I love the players when they're in their ties and they're going through the fan bases and the connection to it. I love the whiteout at Penn State. These are the things I'm excited about because when it comes to who's on these rosters, I have to admit, Tommy, I don't know a Johnny Manziel from an Anthony Richardson from a Robert Griffin III. I do not know who's on these rosters because at this point, college football, the turnover, it changes how I approach each season. So, with that said, give me who you think, outside of Georgia, who do you think has the best roster right now in college football across any conference?
I would have to say it's Ohio State. The big question mark at quarterback, but that's really the only question mark. They have the best receiving core. They have a lot of the pieces from last year coming back. Ohio State, there's a reason they're ranked 3, even without a returning quarterback, which is pretty hard to do, and that's why. All the pieces around whoever ends up winning that job, I think it's going to be McCord. Whoever ends up winning that job is going to be in a good spot. And also, say it again, there's a reason why Ohio State quarterbacks always end up being first-round draft picks. Yeah, they're good, but also the pieces around them are pretty special, so I would have to say Ohio State.
If you had to have a long-shot Heisman candidate, We're going to talk about Spencer Rattler a little bit later in the segment, but if there was someone of that caliber who it's like, he's not on the radar right now, he may be the equivalent of Jalen Hurts when he was at Oklahoma, which is he doesn't win the Heisman, but he gets invited to New York for the ceremony. Who would you potentially put on that radar as, if not a Heisman candidate, kind of on the fringes of it, and we're not talking about them right now?
Well, he is sort of talked about because he had a good year last year, but like Jalen Hurts, he is transferring this year for his final season in college football, and we're going to talk about him, in our first game that we discussed, and that's Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. If he puts up good numbers like he did at Wake Forest and Notre Dame, now it's on the national spotlight. It's with every game being on TV. I think he will force his way into that conversation just purely off the fact that he'll get so much exposure.
So with that said, perfect transition. We've got college football like opening weekends. It's not even like one weekend. It's really like the next 2 weeks. There's a series of kind of kickoffs for a number of different programs. And so we're going to go through kind of the best game from each day that features college football. And we're going to let, again, at Real Tommy Morris on Twitter, our college football analyst, take us through what he believes are the best matchup on those days. We'll start with 1 week from this Saturday. So about 10 days away, Saturday, August 26th, will be I'll let you pick the game, but you already kind of teased it, so I'll tee it up for you. And that's Navy at number 13, Notre Dame. That's on NBC. Why does that one get your attention?
For a lot of reasons. First of all, they used to call this week 0. I think they've changed the verbiage because it got way, way, way too confusing. So this is technically week 1, but we can pretend it's week 0 because there's not a lot of games on this Saturday, August 26th. It is a game that's going to be in Dublin. I think that it's cool always when teams get to go out of the country and show off the great game of football to some of these countries in Europe, and this one is no exception, being in Dublin. Obviously, Notre Dame, the Irish connection there, so it makes a lot of sense. They're 20.5-point favorites against Navy. The over-under is 50. Like I mentioned earlier, this is Sam Hartman's first game as a Notre Dame quarterback. The thing that is more of a question mark to me, not the quarterback, but the offensive coordinator. Gerard Parker takes over for Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees was kind of stolen away from Notre Dame to be sent to Alabama for quite the price tag. So Navy returns their leading rusher from last season, and Daba Ofana. I like Navy, and I like the under. Notre Dame has struggled with Navy in the past, and I think with all the new pieces and having to play a wing T type team, where they're not going to get the ball as many times as they normally would in a game where they're playing a spread team where the clock doesn't run as much. I like Navy in this one, not to win the game, but 20.5 seems egregious.
The Tommy Rees transition, do you think that Notre Dame will take a step back with not having him calling plays?
I think that is a bigger issue than the quarterback switching, to be honest with you. I think you have somewhat of an unknown stepping in to take his role. Marcus Freeman's only his second year as a head coach. There's a lot of new faces, new coaches on the Notre Dame staff with not a lot of experience. So I would be a little concerned for this season if I'm an Irish fan, but Sam Hartman is the least of my concerns if I like to root for Notre Dame because he is basically a pro playing college football right now.
Now, a note for all of those football fans out there, Navy has gone through a head coaching change, so just be aware of that. Brian Newberry, their new head coach. Curious to know how it impacts the Navy program. Obviously, I love the head coach that they had for the last few years, but after you lose to Army as many times as they had, hey, go Navy, beat Army. If you're not beating Army, you're not staying head coach at Navy. So it's going to be an interesting way for Navy and that head coaching career to start there for Newberry, at least at Navy, going to Dublin and facing Notre Dame there. Let's transition to Thursday, August 31st, another slate of college football games. What's the one from the games on Thursday, August 31st that you have highlighted?
Thursday, we have Florida traveling to Utah. This is a rematch of last year where Utah went to Florida. Florida is a 7.5-point underdog. The over-under is 46. Lots of question marks going into this one. Cam Rising, the starting quarterback for Utah, hurt himself in the Rose Bowl. He's coming off a 3,000-yard season, but we're not sure if he is going to be back in time for this game. It's really tough turnaround time, getting hurt in January, coming back to playing a game right before the start of September. So we'll see if he can go. He has said in the past, and this was a couple months ago, he will do whatever it takes to play in this game, but we're not really sure. The bigger issue for Utah is their backup, Rose, was hurt in a practice. They were doing a full quarterbacks were full live in the scrimmage. They were doing a fall scrimmage, and there's a lot of rumors as to what happened. No, nothing has been confirmed. It was a serious enough injury to where he had to go to the hospital, but again, nothing confirmed. He will not be playing against Florida no matter what. So now you either have your starting quarterback or your third or fourth string going. For Florida, it's going to be former Wisconsin Badger Graham Mertz playing quarterback. It'll be his first start as a Gator. I do believe Reeson's going to play. I think they're being a little coy right now, and they don't want to say it yet because they don't want Florida to know who's going to be playing quarterback. I would be very shocked if Reeson is not playing this game. That's why I like Utah, but I do like the under, but I like Utah.
Do you like Florida to cover, or would you not touch it?
I like Utah to cover the 7.5.
Okay. Let's move now to Friday, September 1st. Next day that has a little bit of college football. Not too many games, though. Just 6 on the slate. Is there one that you have your eye on for Friday, September 1st?
This is a quote-unquote neutral site game, and I say quote-unquote because it is in Georgia Tech's backyard. It is Louisville, 8-point favorites, playing a quote-unquote neutral site game in Atlanta against Georgia Tech is a 50.5-point over underline. Kind of a weird thing with the transfer portal, guys leaving, coming back, whatever. Jack Plummer reunites with his old coach, Brian Brom. Brom was at Purdue. Plummer was at Purdue. Plummer left to go to Cal. Now he goes to reunite with Brom. Now Brom's at Louisville. Very odd kind of roundabout way to put the closing on Jack Plummer's college career here. Georgia Tech can get a big offensive boost from Georgia transfer Dominic Blaylock. Zach Pyron comes back. He was the freshman quarterback who played last year in 3 games but broke his collarbone, and that was the end of that. I like Georgia Tech in this one to cover, and I like the over. I think a lot of points will be scored, and this will be a fun one to watch. I think Louisville will win the game, but Georgia Tech will cover the 8 points.
But an entertaining game is what you're expecting.
Correct.
Moving now to not this Saturday, not next Saturday, but a few more Saturdays from now, the third Saturday from now, which is Saturday, September 2nd. That is really, in many ways, the kickoff of college football as we know it. A lot more action on the docket. Give me at least one game from this one that you're really pumped about.
The obvious stick out from this day is another neutral site game in Charlotte. It's the Battle of the Carolinas. North Carolina, 2.5-point favorites against South Carolina, over under 62.5. 2 of the top NFL prospects, North Carolina's Drake May and South Carolina's Spencer Rattler, will square off in this one. Everyone knows May can throw the ball. He threw for 4,300 yards last year, but people kind of forget he can also run. He almost ran for 700 yards last year. And remember, in college football, a sack counts as negative rushing yards for the quarterback. That doesn't exist in the NFL, so that 700 is actually a lot bigger than the number says. Rattler was sort of written off last year, too, because he was at Oklahoma. He got benched for Caleb Williams, who we now know is the best quarterback maybe of all time. So maybe it's not that bad that he was benched for a guy that's that good, but he showed flashes late in the season for South Carolina. He had a 360-yard game with 2 touchdowns against the rival Clemson. I don't have it marked down, but it's been a long time. Can't give you these like many years, but it's been a very long time since South Carolina's beaten the rival Clemson. I do like Drake May. I got to see him in person in the Holiday Bowl. I think he's outstanding. If it wasn't for Caleb Williams, he would be the clear number 1 NFL prospect, in my opinion. I like North Carolina. I like the over. But there's still some pieces that Drake May's going to miss from last year in the receiving core, but I got faith in him, and I think Carolina wins this one by more than a touchdown, and the over is hit.
Okay, I'm going to give you 3 games. I want you to tell me what's more likely out of these 3 games. That Virginia upsets Tennessee, that Colorado upsets TCU, or that Indiana upsets Ohio State.
I know you want me to say Indiana beat Ohio State. I know that's what you're angling for you. I'm not going to give it to you, though. I'm going to go with Virginia beating Tennessee. I think Tennessee kind of overperformed last year. I think their heads might be a little big coming into this season. You have a new quarterback coming in replacing Hendon Hooker. He's got Melton, who's got some experience, and he's got the viral videos of him throwing an orange 100 yards or whatever he was doing on the practice field. I just don't see that miracle season happening again for them. So I think if anyone's going to be caught sleeping, it's going to be Tennessee, and it's going to be against Virginia, and that'd be the one of the 3 that I would pick.
Now, the reason I actually called out that game that's interesting to me is that's not a good old Rocky Top, Tennessee. That is at Nissan Stadium. I believe that's where the Titans play. Correct. So even though it is a quote-unquote home game and in their backyard, I'm sure it's a home field advantage, it isn't the same kind of home field advantage. And that's part of the reason I actually called it out, because that noon game on the first Saturday of your season. I'm always curious to know if there's a Michigan out there that just sleeps through maybe a little bit too early of a game that becomes competitive and then gets into that second half. But I was curious if you were going to take the Deion Sanders bait. Sounds like you're not. You don't believe Deion Sanders is going to get off to that 1-0 start?
No, I don't. I think they're going to have kind of a tough year, and I don't think it's Deion's fault necessarily. The way the roster is constructed is it's a bunch of pieces from all over the place, kind of combined into one. It is going to be a fun experiment, though, because we've never seen a team basically comprise all of transfers, and a lot of these guys first year playing with each other. Generally, it kind of works if you have a few transfers sprinkled in, and you have the guys who've been in the program who can help them out, help them learn the offense or defense, whatever side of the ball they're on. But this is really the first time we've seen almost a brand new roster in college and trying to figure it out from spring to now. So maybe it'll work. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just not optimistic. And first game especially against a team that just came back from the national championship game, I don't have much faith there.
Okay, we worked through all these other days, all these other games of the early slate of college football to finally work our way through to the gem. The one that, like, Dr. Indiana Jones would be craving for, and that is number 5 LSU at number 8 Florida State. This is exactly the kind of game that we want. I believe it's at a neutral site. I don't think it's at Florida State at their campus. I think it's in Orlando or something. But the whole point is, this is the best game, at least until, the second week of September. Who do you think wins this game?
You are correct. It is in Orlando. It's at Camping World Stadium. By the way, I've always had this theory for college football. We're having all these problems with players sitting out bowl games. Why not you earn the bowl game for the next year, the year before, and all these one-off games that we're seeing at the beginning of the season? This could be the norm. I think that'd be very cool. I think it's a good way to fix that problem because now.
So you're saying make this opening week game the bowl game?
Yep.
Interesting.
And then you, if you were rewarded with a bowl game, you get an extra game on your schedule, so you get with extra money, all that kind of stuff. But who knows? I know that the purists like the bowl season, having it towards the holiday season, but I don't know. I think it'd be much easier to do it this way. Here and over there. The game is Sunday, September 3rd, as you mentioned, Wyatt. It is LSU 2.5-point favorites against Florida State. The line is 56.5 points. Two other guys who are sort of Heisman shortlist guys. I don't know if they have really much of a chance, but Jaden Daniels would have a better chance than Jordan Travis. Jaden Daniels is the quarterback for LSU. Jordan Travis is the quarterback for Florida State. Florida State finished the season on a 6-game win streak, while LSU is coming into this year with the confidence of beating a number 6 Alabama team and a number 7 Ole Miss team last season. These two teams played last year in an opener. Very thrilling game. It was 24-23. Florida State won. There was a big comeback effort from LSU, but it fell short. The thing is, LSU last year, that was Jaden Daniels' first game as a Tiger. He was a transfer from Arizona State, so now he's been in the system and at the school for a year. You got Brian Kelly now there for a year as well, so a lot more familiarity for the Tigers. I like LSU, and I like the under, and I expect another close game just like last year.
No, I think Jaden Daniels, I was interested to know when I asked that question at the beginning of the show, if you had someone who was kind of an outside the conversation but on the Heisman radar kind of narrative. I thought Jaden Daniels is someone who could get into that conversation, especially if LSU gets off to a strong start and the narrative starts to build around him. He's certainly going to have the big-time games to be able to put together Heisman performances in front of the voting committee. But clearly we have a lot of great college football ahead of us over the next few weeks. If you want to get more of Tommy Morris's analysis, you can check him out at buttfumblesports.com. He's going to be writing some stuff for us, so we can post that on the website. But additionally, you can find him on Twitter, at Real Tommy Morris on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. Tommy's going to be joining us throughout the college football season, each week, giving us his analysis, some of his picks, and hopefully breaking things down so we can cash some tickets on all of these college students playing a game with a pigskin. Hope you're having a great day, Tommy, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Well, thank you so much.
That was our college football analyst, Tommy Morris. Now we're going to transition back into our regular show.